from the AP World History Modern, the C.E.D. podcast. This is topic 2.1, the Silk Roads. This is a big topic in AP World History and World History. What's the big idea here with the Silk Roads? They didn't do much with the Silk Roads for a long time, for centuries. They let them run down. They weren't being used. They were kind of getting like decrepit. They weren't maintained. But then you saw this revival of the Silk Roads in the 8th and 9th centuries. Then they become like essential to interregional trade in the 14th and 15th centuries. You want to know what the Silk Road was in 2020 terms? It was Amazon. This was their Amazon. You were able to sell goods in places you never heard of. And this opened up markets, right? This is all about the dollars, man. This is all about money. When you study history, human beings have not changed much, man. It was all about the dollars. These are guys getting the hustle on, and they're making money. Now, when you think about the big ideas of the Silk Road, it wasn't like some guy in China is getting, a bunch of camels with these new saddles, loading them up with goods such as silk. And this dude's walking a caravan from China, like all the way to Madrid, Spain. Like, that's not what's going on here. Think of like a relay race. If you ever watched like a track meet, if you ever ran track, and they pass that baton off to each other, right? These guys would stay in their own little area, but they would pass goods and money and stuff, and they would get taken forward. Okay, again, it's like their Amazon. Like, where does Amazon get their name? I believe, I'm assuming, the Amazon River, tributaries. So, I could be wrong on that. I don't even know. But that's a big idea here. There is a demand for luxury goods, and this increases in Europe and Africa. Think of your economics class, supply and demand. The Silk Road, you didn't have a lot of just common products on the Silk Road. These were luxury items. This was high-end stuff. If you were buying something that traveled on the Silk Road, you had some money. You had some bank. The reason being, think about Amazon Prime. What's the big selling point to get an Amazon Prime membership? Right? You slap down your C note and you get free shipping all year. It's that shipping cost. Same thing with the Silk Road. The shipping cost to ship this stuff, the prices get jacked up. So you had to have some dollars here, right? They weren't selling basic stuff on the Silk Road. Chinese and Persian and Indian artisans and merchants, they expand their production of textiles and porcelain for export because they have all these new markets. Some of these places, most of these places, they're never going to go to themselves. But this is the first time you have expanded markets at this level, right? You're not just selling to your own little village anymore. On that note, textiles, just to be a little proactive. I've taught this class, and it's like in May, I start to realize nobody knows what textiles are. And I've been saying textiles all year. That's my fault as a teacher. It's not the kids' fault. Textiles are not like tiles. I don't know, kids thought they were like tiles, like in their bathroom or something. It's more like woven fabric, right? That's a textile. Caravans are going to make travel safer and more practical. The Chinese are going to invent a system using paper money instead of like these guys would carry like whatever copper coins, like heavy stuff, right? Heavy metal, right? Well, now paper money is going to come into play here, and you're going to get something called flying cash that I'm going to talk about, and it's similar to today, man. It's going to be their version of like an ATM of getting money, whenever you need it, take it out of your account. Now the Silk Road, this is the most famous of all trade routes. It goes way back, like to the Roman Empire, like in 200, in the Common Era. There's 3 top exchanges that happen via the Silk Road. The first one is the one that was intended for goods, products, make money, right? It's all about money. But 2 other things that a lot of historians argue was the legacy of the Silk Road were unintentional. The Silk Road is going to spread religion and disease. So make sure you know that's a great test question. The top 3 exchanges via the Silk Road: goods, religion, and disease, right? So the first one's pretty obvious. And they're making money. They're selling goods. Silk becomes just a very profitable, and it's a status thing, right? This is like, wearing whatever the most expensive designer clothes are these days. I don't know. I still wear flannel shirts from Sears, so I'm not down with all that stuff. So think of like the most expensive shirt you could possibly wear, right? That's what silk was. So it's goods, it's money. But what happens is, unintentionally, to get to the second one, is religion. And Buddhism is going to spread. And like most religions, it's going to undergo changes as it spreads, right? Human beings like to put their own slant, their own bias on religions. And Buddhism originally was not a religion. It was atheistic. I just read a good book over the summer, Why Buddhism is True. And it was not a religious book. It was like a scientific evaluation of why Buddhist philosophies work. Anxiety is a big issue nowadays. Mindfulness training. So this is nothing new. This goes way back. And I read something that's very powerful in that book. The author, I think, was called, what's that guy's name? Robert Wright, I think was his name. And I read something that just struck me. It said, we're hardwired to never be happy. This is how Buddhism started. Because of natural selection. Natural selection needs you to survive. Natural selection needs you to pass your genes on. Natural selection doesn't care if you're happy. So the reason that we survive as a species, that desire to always push through and want more, that's a good thing as far as survival goes. But the catch is, you're never freaking happy. I need to make this much money. Then when you make that much money, guess what? Man, if I could just make 20 grand more a year, I'd be set. Or you get a house. Hey, this is a great house. And then after a while, like, man, if I could just get a little bigger house or change my zip code one more time. Think about like when you were a kid, that Christmas gift you wanted. Man, I want that, whatever. G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip, right? That was my thing in the 70s. And then you get that G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip, that thing you wanted all, leading up to Christmas, or a BB gun, like whatever you wanted. Then you get it, and it's like awesome. You get that dopamine hit Christmas morning. But then after a week, like, now I want something else, right? Now I want a Star Wars lunchbox or whatever. That's the trick, right? And the Buddha came from a very wealthy family. And while money's good, nobody's, having money is better than not having money. But he realized wealth didn't solve all your problems. It wasn't the single answer. It almost teaches like the desire for money and material possessions. Buddhism originally teaches that it's like an illusion. So these merchants on the Silk Road didn't like that. Like, whoa. Hey, man, these guys are all about the money, man. They're all about making moves, right? They're hustling all day. So they kind of change it. And they make it more spiritual, right? Again, it's a philosophy at first. And like Robert Wright's book talked about, like Buddhism can make you a better whatever you already are. Like I was raised Catholic, so Buddhist philosophies can make you a better Christian. It can make you a better Muslim. It can make you a better atheist. It can make you a better agnostic, whatever you are. It's a philosophy to deal with things like anxiety and chronic dissatisfaction and to really be happy in life. But these guys change it into something spiritual. Because of these guys on the Silk Road, Buddha becomes a deity. He's not just some rich dude that realized it really isn't all about money. He becomes a deity, and this is where you get Mahayana Buddhism, and that starts spreading along these trade routes. So it's an altered form of Buddhism. But I don't want to get too much off on a tangent, but all these, all religions go through this. I'm Roman. I was raised Roman. I was baptized at St. Gabe's on Verner, off of Springwells there. And going to Catholic school, I went to St. Gabe's when it was a Catholic school. And even then, I'm like, this dude was a Palestinian Jew. He spoke Aramaic. How is he got blonde hair, blue eyes, he's white, and he speaks Shakespearean English? How did that happen, right? You know, I read something, I think it was Dominic Crozon. It's a theologian. He wrote a book called The Historical Jesus, and he said, if dogs believed in God, God would be a dog, right? So you see these changes of religion, and this happens with Buddhism. Because these guys are like, hey, wait a minute, this stuff about the material world being an illusion, or that desire for material things being an illusion and not making you happy. We're not really hip to that, bro, because all we do all day is hustle, right? So they take that out. Okay, the other thing that's transferred, that was a huge impact, right, is disease. Now, this is unintentional, but the bubonic plague is going to spread. And you're going to get fleas from China, right? I know a lot of your history books say it was rats, but technically it was the fleas that got a ride on these black rats, and the fleas gave people the Black Plague. Like right now, we're doing this podcast. It's 2020, September of 2020. We're in the midst of COVID-19. Man, COVID-19 is like an ice cream cone compared to the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague wipes out almost half of Europe during it's like the mid 14th century. It kills half of Europe. You're dead, right? This was just devastating. It's because of the Silk Road, because of this, going to a different area. Like my wife went to Mali, Africa to help build a school. Man, you don't just hop on a plane from Detroit and go to Mali, Africa. She had to get a bunch of shots, immunizations. If she just shows up in Mali without these shots, she could die. She could kill the whole village. She could wipe out the whole village. The water of the village she stayed in, that the people there, the people from Mali drank out of, if she drank it, it could kill her. They had their own water, right? But the people of Mali had built up an immunity to all the stuff that was in their well water, right? You can't just show up somewhere far away. It could be incredibly dangerous. And the bubonic plague does that. And the effects of this are huge. Even though we're talking mid-14th century with the bubonic plague, when like Hernan Cortez goes to Tenochtitlan in 1519, he gets his butt kicked from a military standpoint by the Mexica, by the Aztecs. But how did the Spanish take control of Mexico? It's unintentional germ warfare. They accidentally wipe out a ton of the Mexican tribes because they had no immunity to smallpox. So there's a domino effect here through history. That's why a lot of historians will tell you, and our guy Heimler in Heimler's History, he talks about it too, that the religion and the disease are kind of the bigger legacy of the Silk Road, even though its original objective was just, making money, trade. Okay, so what's some of the things that were traded? China's exporting silk, obviously, right? Gunpowder, right? They invent gunpowder, and later they invent the gun, right? Remember the Song Dynasty? They invent the gun. Paper, mirrors. And Chinese women are working. They're making money out of their house because they're making silk, right? They're making clothing out of silk. And you got India. They're exporting textiles. Again, textiles are like woven fabric. Medicine, spices, pepper. From the Middle East, dates, nuts, dried fruit, swords. The Mediterranean's exporting gold, jewelry, perfume. One of my personal favorites, olive oil, right? So these are just some of the things that are being exported. Now let's talk about, our AMSCO text talks about some of the causes of the growth of exchange networks. So the Crusades are going to help pave the way to expanding these networks. And knights are going to bring back fabrics and spices from the East. But no other cause has a more significant impact on the expansion of trade like the Mongol Empire. The Mongols are the baddest dudes ever in history. And we're going to talk about that a lot in 2.2. The Mongols conquered the Abbasid Caliphate in 1258. And in the 14th century, China comes under their control as well. The Mongols were the baddest dudes ever. The Mongols, they're going to improve the roads and they're going to punish bandits. The Mongols are becoming like mafioso, right? It's like, my buddy Nick that used to own Olympia down in Greektown in Detroit. My grandfather had a pool room on Werner back in the 60s. Once a month, a guy came, got a little envelope, give the guy his envelope, he goes away, have a nice day. When you gave that guy the envelope, you got something for your money. Besides it being a shakedown, you got protection. Nobody mess with you. That's what the Mongols are doing. That's what they're providing for people. So because of the Mongols, and everybody's just scared to death of the Mongols because they're just such bad dudes. This is the baddest gang ever. So they're providing security. So these merchants feel safer because they're like, man, I'm going on this Silk Road. I'm in the middle of nowhere. There's no, you don't have a cell phone. Somebody tries to rob you. You're not calling 911, right? These guys are like, I feel safer. So if I feel safer, I'm going to do more business. I'm going to walk around with a bunch of money on me, a lot of goods on me. We can all make more money now if we're not worrying about being robbed, right? Another cause for the expansion is exchange networks was the improvement of transportation. Saddles are made to distribute the weight more on these camels so they could carry more. So you're carrying more goods. You feel safer because the Mongols are providing protection, right? So everybody's making money here. And you're selling goods, you're selling products in markets that were never accessible to you. Now, some of the effects of this growth of exchange networks, right? The effects are you get like these oases that develop around the routes. And they become like thriving cities. Think about, if you take Werner all the way down like to Wyoming by Dearborn Sausage over there in the Rouge Plant, Roman Village, Patton Park. And you hang a right and you go straight up like towards Michigan. There's a huge truck stop. It's been there since I was a kid. And across the street's a diner. Those truckers that travel all day carrying goods, a truck stop, they can, refuel their truck, put air in their tires, do some general maintenance. Some truck stops will offer some sophisticated maintenance. They can take a shower. They can go get a nice breakfast. They can, get a hot coffee or something. They kind of recharge their batteries, right? At these truck stops. That's what happens with the Silk Road. These guys need to stop. They need to eat. Their camels need to rest and eat and get water. So some of them, they developed like these cities. And in these cities, they were like, you had merchants from all over would get together in these cities and kind of recharge a little bit, do some business. They party a little bit. And one of them, this is one of your vocab words from the C.E.D. Kashgar is one of these cities. It's located at the western edge of China. It's where northern and southern routes of the Silk Roads cross. And they go to like Central Asia, India, Pakistan, Persia. And by the way, when I say Persia, if you look at a map 2020, there's no Persia. It's pretty much modern day Iran. So, there's the Kashgar River. It supplies plenty of water. You got plenty of water. Now they have very fertile crops like wheat and rice and fruit. So they have plenty of food. They have plenty of cotton. So you could stop at a city like Kashgar. You could hustle. You can make some money. You can get some food. You can get some drink. You can party. You can, really recharge your battery at every level, before you move on in your travels. There was another major city, and this is also in your C.E.D. Another vocab word. Samarkand, Samarkand. There's a lot of cultural exchanges here. Okay, there's a center for trading goods. There's archaeological evidence, like besides all the things I mentioned before. They have all that, but there's a lot of archaeological evidence there of like Christianity, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, Islam. So you had all these religions that people are learning about. A lot of artisans, and Samarkand is going to be known as a center of Islamic learning, and they're going to have these beautiful mosques. Mosques from an architectural standpoint are just kind of amazing. Now, it's like a vocab word in our AMSCO text. It's not in illustrative example, whatever they call it, vocab word, in the C.E.D. But it is in your historical development, and that is caravanserai. These were like inns, like little hotels, and they spread along the Silk Roads. Now, they weren't as extravagant as, say, like a city like Samarkand, but it did give you the basic necessities. You could refuel, your camels, food and water. You could get some food and water. You could do some business. You could party a little bit. And they put them roughly 100 miles apart because that's about how far a camel could go before they needed water. So these were like spaced out, these caravanserai. So, and it's in the C.E.D, but it's under the historical development. So we need to know that. So then you got a second effect of the growth of exchange networks is the commercial innovations that greatly help manage the increasing trade. China's going to develop new financial system. They had been a money economy, using money rather than bartering, like a barter system. Like I just bartered the other day. I did a barbecue job for a friend. I did some briskets. I did some pork shoulders. Made some barbecue sauce. He didn't pay me anything. He refurbishes jukeboxes, so I'm gonna get a really nice jukebox from my basement out of that gig. No money was exchanged. That's called bartering, right? Well, the Chinese are getting away from that. That was kind of old school. You barter. And carrying stuff, like they have like copper coins. Like you're a merchant, you're traveling the Silk Road. You don't want to carry all this cash, right? It's heavy. You could be carrying goods. You could be putting goods on that camel or on your back, right? But you're carrying this money. They come up with something called flying cash. And the flying cash, it's like a system of credit. Now, this should sound familiar because, this influences the way we do business now. This allowed a merchant to deposit paper money under his name in one location, and then he could go down the Silk Road. He could withdraw that same amount in another location. What's that sound like? Sound like an ATM, right? Like my bank here, in Dearborn, I put my money in there, but when I'm heading into Western, heading to work, I'm going down Michigan Avenue. I hit that Charter 1 by Telway over there. That's kind of what these guys are doing, right? This is like the first ATM in a way. And this makes things very convenient. And they had locations where you would exchange flying cash. And this becomes the model for banks like today, the modern era. And they call them banking houses. And these are established like in European cities in like the 1300s. So you have banking houses is a vocab word in C.E.D. So make sure you know that. At a banking house, a person could present a bill of exchange, and you have a document stating like the holder was like legally promised payment of like X amount of dollars by such and such a date. And then you would receive that amount of money in exchange. This is very sophisticated at the time. And they're going to support trade by providing convenience and the stability of these institutions. Okay, so again, this is the C.E.D. podcast, right? We are, expanding on stuff from the C.E.D. We are hitting stuff that's in the AMSCO text. But we want to make sure we have a focus on the learning objective from the course and exam description. So the learning objective here is explain the causes and effects of growth of networks of exchange after 1200. Okay, I've kind of done that, but let's see what the College Board is telling us, right? They kind of give us the answers very briefly, right? The M-School text, we can dig a little deeper. But what the College Board is saying is this. To answer that learning objective, you got to look at the improved commercial practices that led to an increased volume of trade and expanded the geographical range of existing trade routes, including the Silk Roads, promoting the growth of powerful new trading cities, right? So I kind of talked about that, right? You should kind of know that. But we just want to try to make sure we're on the same page, literally and figuratively, with the College Board. Second, the growth of interregional trade in luxury goods was encouraged by innovations in previously existing transportation and commercial technologies, including the caravanserai forms of credit and the development of money economies. Now, I talked about that more specifically, right? Third, College Board is telling us the demand for luxury goods increased in Afro-Eurasia, Chinese markets, the Persian market, and the Indian artisans and the merchants. They expand their production of textiles and porcelains for export. And the manufacturing of iron and steel are going to expand in China. So we're just kind of making sure we're not going too far off on a tangent. We want to make sure we know, whatever the College Board is laying down, we got to pick it up. So 1, 2, and 3 there from the College Board, that's not brand new information, right? We pretty much learn this stuff during the podcast, right? We'll kind of wrap it up there. Okay, that's it for 2.1. The next one's a big one too, man. 2 big ones here. The Mongols are 2.2. Silk Road and Mongols, huge topics. All right, see you next time.
Born of darkness, and I found my way. Hey,